Yeah, so, for me, growing up in Minnesota, I had big dreams as a kid. I wanted to be a professional snowboarder, and I was sharing last night, one of the best gifts I had growing up was I had parents who believed in me. And so when I told my dad and mom I wanted to be a professional snowboarder, my dad straight up said, go for it. And it wasn't like, hey, go for it, you're going to guaranteed get there, this is for sure going to happen. It was go for it and be willing to work much harder than you probably think you're going to need to. And I think the piece I would just share with parents that's super powerful that I'll never forget is if your kid or if your child has a goal or a dream, to support them, because you could never know the level of desire they'll create to make that dream come true. When I was a young kid, I didn't know what it was going to take to be a professional snowboarder. I had no idea, really. I just knew I loved to snowboard and I knew I wanted to do it. But over the years of obsessively snowboarding and obsessively working at the career and building little bits of confidence, my desire turned into a burning desire. And the burning desire was unstoppable. I couldn't not snowboard. I couldn't not think about it. And I'm in school in Minnesota, and I'm looking at my heroes on videotape, and I'm watching these videos every day. And to see them that far away and to see that big picture, I didn't realize what I was actually going for and how big of a goal it really was. But the part that's just super critical, I think, for young kids to hear is to start with something you love, go for it, and just take baby steps and be super consistent and be willing to put in work for a long period of time. It's the other piece that I think is happening so much these days when I hear kids that are young. They want this success overnight. They want it quick. They want 6 months, a millionaire, multimillionaire. And from my experience, that doesn't happen very often. Maybe you become a YouTube star, maybe you become super huge on social media and you create massive wealth quickly. But most people I've got around, and I'm lucky in the world I live to be around a lot of highly successful people, most people have committed a good decade of obsessive behavior, and eventually with the right failures and not quitting, they find massive success.
Yeah. And what was the original draw towards snowboarding? Was it completely fueled just for the love of the game, or did you have any was there another intention behind it? Worthiness or ego or status or things like that?
There was a little bit that ended up being a part of my desire. I grew up pretty much broke. We lived in a lower to middle class family lifestyle. And my parents worked hard. They worked 9 to 5. They saved their money. They were frugal. I was just talking, they're 80 years old, been married for 60 or 56 years, 57 years, long time. And, seeing them work so hard and not following and doing what they love was really eye-opening for me. I always hear my parents talk about how it's like, just do what you love. I didn't do what I wanted to do. I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And that was burned into my brain of like, do what you love and chase it. And so by the time I was 13 or 14, I just loved snowboarding. It was this like moment to be free. Like no one's there telling me how to snowboard. I was in football, basketball, and I had all these coaches being like, this is how you do it. This is how we behave. And it's just like with snowboarding, it was, you do whatever you want. There's no one telling you what to do. And I loved the idea of just sports and being extreme, like taking the risk. The adrenaline was extremely exciting at a young age. And it just meshed well for my body type, my size, and growing up in Minnesota. So in the beginning, it was just purely the love of the sport. And, eventually it turned into how big of a career can I make this? And that wasn't probably until 3 to 5 years of me snowboarding regularly in Minnesota that I was like, okay, there is professional snowboarding in the world and I'm going to chase this dream.
What age were you when you decided like, I'm going to actually do this for a living?
Yeah, such a good question. I was like right around 15, 16. Wow. And I still remember a very clear decision where I'm going to make this snowboarding career work. I'm going to make it or die trying. Yeah. And I think that's something that is worth touching on as well. The level of commitment someone has for a goal, my goodness, commitment moves the world. Mm-hmm. So if you have a level of I'm going to make it or die trying, mark my words, based on the laws we live in on planet Earth, from my experience, my 41 years of being here, it's coming. You will create it. Just, you got it. The commitment is the separator.
Yeah. I think that's what I was going to ask you next is what does it take to go from I'm good at something to I'm the best in the entire world at something. Yeah. And it's that level of commitment and that grit and that relentless desire to succeed. And there's that quote that says, when you want to succeed as badly as you want to breathe, only then will you become successful.
So good. I could not agree more. And what's interesting about a goal, or at least my perception of these goals, is if you just take steps every day and you do all you can do that day, you will build this confidence. You will start to gain experience and have this unique perspective that nobody else will be able to relate to. And, you know, as I went further and further and started to move out to Salt Lake City, and I'm snowboarding every day, I'm working at these really shitty jobs like Blockbuster, which was, it was good. It was, you know, it gave me some grit and fight. I'd work at Blockbuster at night, I'd snowboard during the day, and I thought within a year of getting to Salt Lake City, I'd be this big time pro snowboarder. And I get out there and I'm like, dang, these guys that are my heroes, who I'm like starting to see and associate with at the mountain, they're so much better than I thought they were. There's such a gap between where I was and where I thought I was, that nothing happens year one. And I'm eating peanut butter and jelly for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and working at Blockbuster, snowboarding. Year two, I go back home to Minnesota to, you know, save money and work. I'm doing odd jobs in the summer. I go back out to Salt Lake. I'm like, okay, this is my year. I'm working at, you know, like Red Robin or Red Lobster, and I'm like peanut butter and jelly breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and nothing happens year two. And I'm like, dang, man, this is something where I just didn't, at 13, had no idea what it would actually take. And that's the piece I just say to the listeners, is like, you're going to have to put in work, and it's going to be for a long period of time for some big goals. And so year three, I'm like, okay, this is my year. I'm going to make it this year. Nothing happens. I actually end up getting hurt the third year really badly. I dislocate my kneecap. And at that time, I'm dating this girl who says, yeah, you should go to college. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm committed to this. Either you get on the bus or you're cut. And so she and her mom just couldn't get past college. And I'm like, we're done. So I break up with this girl. And then year four comes, and I've got a great friend who is in Salt Lake City. He's got money, and he says, hey, Dan, I'm going to take you to Aspen, Colorado. You need to compete in the Aspen Open. And in an Open, anybody can enter. You just pay your $200. You get to do your run. And you get 2 runs. If you finish top 10, you go to finals. And if you finish in the top finals, top 3, you might get a sponsorship. So day one goes by. We've got like 200 kids that are there, because anyone can show up. And anyone, you think you're decent, you pay your money and you get your runs. I end up finishing like 6th that day of qualifiers. So I'm in finals. The next day at finals, I don't know what the hell happened to the other guys, but I ended up winning this contest.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of these brands saying, hey, I've been watching Dan, I've seen him, he's had some good parts. This was kind of the breakthrough moment where some brands, one guy at a brand that I've been riding for a long time, his name is Blue Montgomery, owner of Capita Snowboard, says, hey, you won that contest, I want you to come to a couple events. And it's amazing how quickly, when one person puts you on the platform and you've got the preparation, how fast a career can take off. Because that was literally within a year. I had contracts with every brand, Volcom, GoPro, Rockstar, Capita, and it was just completely unknown to a blow up. And that's what everyone said. They're like, where'd you come from? You blew up overnight. I'm like, yeah, you weren't there the first 10 years when I was eating shit, peanut butter and jelly, you know, going through injuries.